What up, y'all? The Knight of Green here, just correcting some erroneous things from my cost efficiency tier list. So there are three big things that were incorrect on my part, and I'd like to apologize for them. So the first thing that I got wrong was that I labeled the Spinoraptor as the Indoraptor. I won't redo the whole video now, but when they add in new dinosaurs, if they do, I will make sure when I remake this list, I'll have the Spinoraptor correctly named. The second and third things that I got wrong, they're related and come from statements that I said about the rating modifiers within this game. Shoutouts for the Redditor Arctic Zen for bringing these to my attention. So for the second mistake, I did say that Aggressive Instinct 1, the genetic modifier, was a cost-effective thing you can do for your dinosaurs that you can add to whatever species you can. And the reason why I said this was because the Aggressive Instincts 1 claims that you get a 10% increase in rating while only having an 8% cost increase, which, just looking at these numbers, it's strictly the most cost-effective gene in the game compared to really everything else. However, this statement is a lie. The 10% increase that you see does not apply to the total rating score of a dinosaur, but instead only applies to the base rating. To find the base rating, you have to go to the rating tab on the individual dinosaur. However, the authenticity bonus is always displayed added to the base rating in all menus outside of this individual dinosaur rating page, which is why gene modifications are misleading altogether by how much they actually affect the rating. So a side note on the authenticity score, max authenticity is always half of the base score, or is the half of the base score rounded up to 1 if the base score was an odd number. Also, any genome score that's above 50 will have an authenticity score, but nothing else will affect the score outside of completing the genome. Any hybrids, for some reason, have authenticity scores, and it uses the same calculations as any other normal dinosaur species, even though despite hybrids just not being authentic dinosaurs, but this is neither here or there. Anyway, let's get back on track. So at max genome, the base rating will account for a total of 2/3 of the total rating. So ignoring the special cases, which we will get to momentarily, theoretically, taking all that was said into consideration, Aggressive Instincts 1 actually only increases the dinosaur rating by approximately 6.67%, but will increase the cost by 8%. Thus, this makes it overall slightly less cost-effective than using a default non-modified dinosaur. And mind you, this is the most cost-efficient gene modifier in the game. And if you were to think about adding even more Aggressive Instinct 1 modifiers, it will always make the dinosaur less cost-efficient, unfortunately. However, what is not considered here in this just pure cost efficiency analysis is the increase in incubation time and the incubation failure rates, which, if you want to counteract them, as we know, you need to research and place technologies on hatchery that help stabilize this incubation process to counteract the effect of the dinosaurs dying off with more modifications. And realistically, if you're going for fast times in the challenge mode, this takes away from you strapping on the maximum incubation speed modifiers to pump out the dinosaurs for that rating in the end game. So this is why I will change my statement, and I'll say I wouldn't really recommend modifications at all unless you really have the extra money to spare and you're not too concerned with time. Now, onto the special cases. While what I said overall is true in that in most cases, and when I mean most, I mean like nearly all, there are still situations where adding Aggressive Instinct 1 is a cost neutral or cost effective to the dinosaur. So in these special case scenarios, this would be generally involved with the calculations being rounded in a way that would make it so it would work out in its favor. So this is really only applicable to dinosaurs that have a low base rating, which would mean they'd also have a low authenticity rating. So for example, I'm using the dinosaur Chasmosaurus. It is cost neutral to have it, of course as default, but it's also cost neutral to have it with 1 modifications for Aggressive Instinct 1. So And the reason why this happens, even though we just said above that you would actually get less value, is because if we look at the base rating of a Chasmosaurus, it has a base rating of 33, meaning that the authenticity score should be at 16.5, but it's rounded up to 17. And the aggressive instinct 1 is stated to only affect the base rating, and it only increases it by 10%. So it should only increase the score by 3.3. But with this game, regardless of if it's like 0.5 or 0.4, 0.3, whatever, it will always round this number up 1. So even though it's at 3.3, the game will round up the modification score up to 4. And as a result, if you were to take the modified 54 total score and divide it by the default of the 50, you're going to get an 8% difference in the rating score and an 8% cost increase difference, meaning that between the non-modifying Chasmosaurus and the only one additional aggressive instincts 1 Chasmosaurus, they have the exact same cost efficiency. But as you can see with these further Chasmosauruses, adding on either 2 or 3 aggressive instincts 1, they decrease the cost efficiency. I mean, it's not by terribly too much, but as you see in the parentheses, this was the number that you would have seen if the modifier applied to the total rating, and if you were to look at the cost efficiency of the supposed rating. But in the normal, that's just how the cost rating looks in-game and the efficiency in-game. So now on to the cases where you would find the aggressive instincts 1 as cost effective. So one case where you would see that the aggressive instincts 1 applied would be cost effective is when you have 50% or as close to 50% of the genome complete for the dinosaur you're applying it to. This is because the authenticity bonus is so minimal or non-existent that this modification alteration is more pronounced and it will be up to the standard that it claims it will be. However, this really is problematic in almost every way, because a low genome dinosaur with modifications will pretty much guarantee die in the incubation process. And even if you get it to survive, it has a substantial lower rating score. It's cost inefficient, and its lifespan is much shorter compared to the complete 100% version of this dinosaur. But that's not all. There is a more useful scenario where aggressive instinct 1 is actually cost effective. This would be, from what I'm observed, to be in the Dracorex. So I won't go through the lengthy calculations and the roundings that the game does, and I'll just display the numbers as I saw them. One thing to note, Dracorex is one of the only dinosaurs that I've found that if you apply 2 aggressive instincts 1 on it, it will almost be as cost effective as the default genome. So that's something to consider. And if you want to see if a dinosaur overall is going to have a cost effective version of this gene, all you have to do is divide the modified rating with 1 aggressive instinct 1, and then divide it by the total rating of an unmodified default 1. And if the number is less than 1.08, that means that it's a less cost-efficient alternative. If it's exactly 1.08, that means it's cost neutral. And if this number is greater than 1.08, then that means it is cost effective. Again, you're not really going to find too many dinosaurs where this is going to be a cost-effective thing to add to it, but if you wanted to go through and try all the other dinosaurs out with this in mind, you can do so. So the third error was in my statement on the effect of paleobotany and its implications on the Ouranosaurus and the Iguanodon enclosures. So similarly to modifications, I used to think that paleobotany affect the total score, but I was wrong, as it again only affects the base score. Therefore, using only default dinosaur genomes, a maximum paleobotany score is not the 40% score increase that the game claims, but it's really only about a 27% increase, give or take 1 or so percent, depending on how the game rounds some of these numbers. While these two dinosaurs, Iguanodon and Tyrannosaurus, they're still my favorite combos to run. Instead of reaching the rating score of about 1,204 like I used to think it was, the actual number is only going to be around 1,090. So it's a bit less than I originally calculated, but if you throw in some scenery pieces, this can bring this total cage rating value closer to that original number that I was stating. But as a side note, despite the fact that the two Iguanodons only have two preferred food options, as long as you have a third option that's not harmful to them, you can still reach the max paleobotany score for them. I'm not really sure how this works out for them, but I'm not upset about it in the slightest. But yeah, so these are all my corrections and side notes in regards to the tier list, so stay tuned for more content from me and see you guys later.